We bought our daughter Alexis a car a few weeks ago, and we did a video into that whole car buying process. In this video, we're going to show you the financial side and really our decision-making process for why we bought the car the way that we did and why we bought a new car at all.
Sounds good.
Hi, I'm Joseph.
And I'm Tasha with One Big Happy Life, and we make videos about how to find balance, build wealth, and live happy. So if you're all about creating the life that you want on your own terms, then we make videos to help you out with that. So you should definitely subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single video.
So we just bought Alexis her first new car just a couple of weeks ago, and we already did a video on it, and if you haven't seen it, that is a great prerequisite for this video because it generated so many questions that we really wanted to go into the financial side and explain how we made the decision and why we purchased the car.
And yes, we're talking about this in the context of our own car buying experience, but this is generally a great framework for you to use with any financial decision, but especially if you're going out there and buying a car, which many of us will own 6 or 7 cars over the course of our lifetime. So we have made the slides that we're going to be using for today's video available in a workbook form for you at One Big Happy Life /new car, so you can go download it there and then you have it for the rest of your life to, for the next time you go to buy your first car or next car.
Let's start with how much we spent on the car, the actual numbers. So it's a 2019 Hyundai Tucson SEL. The price of the car is $22,000 and the total of purchasing the car was $25,000 because there were $3,000 in tax, titles, licensing fees.
And when it comes to the financing, we financed the car for 60 months at a 2.9% interest rate, which results in a $454 car payment. Okay. So now that you know the bare bones numbers about what we actually spent, we're going to do a deeper dive in this financially, and we're going to look at the affordability by some typical measures that people will use, which is the price of the car in relation to your wealth, your overall income, and your monthly income. So you can see on this slide here that the total price of the car as a percentage of our gross annual income, so that means before taxes and retirement savings and all that, the price of the car was less than 10% of our gross annual employment income. So this doesn't even include our business income. If we included our business income, then it would be even lower. And also we round for some amount of financial privacy because, that's something that people could use to try to steal our identity. So just kind of keep that in mind.
And the car payment as a percentage of our monthly income is less than 5% of our monthly net. And that's just the employment income again.
Yes, but our net income is also after we save for retirement. So that's excluding even the amount that we're putting away for the future. It's still less than 5% of our monthly income.
And all of our transportation costs add up to less than 7% of that net income. So that is pretty good, I feel like. Probably below average nationally for transportation costs. So
yes.
We're keeping that very low.
And so what you can tell from that is that in terms of percentage of our overall income, the relative cost of the car for us is relatively low. Even though, yes, it is a new car and yes, it is a car payment, it actually has very little impact on our overall finances. So then let's look at the price of the car in relation to our wealth. So in relation to our net worth, the total price of the car is 19% of our net worth as it stands today. By the end of the year, we're expecting that to be around 13% of our net worth because our net worth is actually increasing very quickly.
And the car is only 2.5% of our total assets.
Yes. So,
as it is today.
Yes. So still very, very small numbers. So when it comes to our decision-making process, we know that we're going to get a car because there's 3 of us and we only have 2 cars and we all go to different places. And we lived without 3 cars and it was just kind of frustrating. So the first question was, well, who should get the car?
Well, I think everybody that's been watching the channel has known that I have wanted a truck for some time now. But should I actually get that truck? I don't think so.
Well, so
Not yet.
we've been going back and forth about that. And so we have this 2015 Honda Fit that actually none of us really like. We've talked about this before, that car was actually really a mistake. We compromised on price and size, and we're all just generally, Alexis doesn't want it either. She would rather take the older Journey than to take the Honda Fit. So we knew that the Fit is our least desirable car, but we don't want to swap that out and still just have two cars. So
we knew that Alexis wanted a bigger car because
yes.
she does like the Journey. But if we just gave her a hand-me-down of the Dodge Journey, then that means that our large family car is going to go because Alexis might not be here in another year because she might be moving away to college. So that would mean that we would need to replace a big car, and we would want to replace it with something that's going to fulfill all of our needs now and for the foreseeable future, which that means it's a big car purchase.
And so because of this, we started thinking about our car priorities, right? And so safety was important for us, longevity, size, and value. And also we're thinking about, well, what kind of car do we want to have? Like, we want to start planning financially for the thing that we actually want and not the bare minimum that we could potentially afford. And so we decided, well, which car, so that means looking at the thing that you want and figuring out how much it costs. And so when we looked at the cars that we wanted, they're going to be around $35,000, and we expect to keep those cars for about 10 years. So realistically, 4 or 5 cars for the rest of our lives each, which is not that many. Whereas the kind of cars that we felt would be appropriate for Alexis, which are mid-size SUVs, but still like a little bit smaller than what we would need for a family, were around the $25,000 range. So it was actually $10,000 cheaper for us to get the car that's perfectly suited for Alexis, and then just bide our time to get the cars that are perfectly suited for our needs and wants.
And just kind of background, the average price of new cars now is over $30,000, and so our car, if we were going to replace it, would be a little bit above average, and Alexis's car is a little bit below the average price.
So when you're looking at what you want to buy, on top of your financial priorities, we think that you should stop and think about how much do you want to objectively spend on a car? Not your car payment, but like the total dollar amount to buy the thing. Like if you were going to go out and buy a box of cereal, how much do you spend on cereal? Same thing. You look at a car the same way. You don't look at it by the car payment. And so for us, we're comfortable spending, at least right now in our lives, somewhere around at least, 35,000 for a car for us.
But really not more.
Yeah.
And it's easy to take an SUV into the 40s or
50s,
some of them
60s.
And we're just not $60,000 or $50,000 car people. We're
At least not right
$40,000.
now. I think it will take a long time. We still have a lot of other financial milestones that we want to hit. And so once we hit those and we're like in this place of just immense financial abundance, then sure, like we'll use that to, to buy more expensive cars if we want to, right? But we're also not, at least me, I'm not such a big car person that I'm looking to, have a luxury car or anything like that. It's just not really my thing. I just want a larger car, safety features. I want the chairs to be comfortable. I want it to have a good warranty. I want it to be stress-free. So
the next step is to then look at the cars that we actually want and see how much they cost and how that jives with the amount that we want to spend on a car. And so if the car that you really want and need is below it, great, you can just buy that car. If not, then you're going to have to start taking a look at the priorities of the vehicle itself. Are you going to get a little smaller one than you ideally want? Are you going to change some features?
Get an older car, more mileage, that kind of thing. So one of the big things that often come up with us is whether to buy new or used. And we have bought both new and used. So the one thing I will say, so we have this slide here for you, which shows some of the options that we considered once we settled on the Tucson, right? So then we looked at the 2019, a 2018, and a 2016.
And so you can see that $22,000 for the 2019, brand new, was comparable to a 2018 limited with 5,000 miles on it.
And that's because the SEL for 2019, they moved more of the safety features down into the lower models. So you had to buy a 2018 limited or older model to have the same features as a 2019 SEL, which is the next step down from the limited. But you can see there isn't that much of a price difference. Like their 2018 Tucson that's used with 5,000 miles and also has less of a warranty because the warranty drops down on a subsequent purchaser, it's the same price. And then the 2016 Tucson, that's 50,000 miles on that car. At our rate of driving, that's 5 years of usable life off of a car
or more. We actually only put about 6,000 to 8,000 miles on our journey a year, which is basically nothing. That's like half of the average in the car world.
And so at a cost of $5,000, so you're saving $5,000 and you're losing 5 years of usable life on a vehicle. So for us, that didn't make any sense. And this was the same thing that we saw when we were looking at used Honda Fits versus new Honda Fits. The depreciation, that 25% number that you see, it just doesn't, I just have not experienced that happening anymore. And so I wonder if there's something, trends are changing, but it's just cars are holding their value better, even Hyundais. I mean.
And so that might be an average number taking into account like every single car. And so maybe there are some cars that are just depreciating so fast, it's actually driving that average number up. But for a lot of cars, like you can find that it's more difficult to get a great deal on a slightly used car than it used to be, maybe.
And so we decided for all of the warranty, low mileage, and personally, our cars that are bought new have fared better over time than the cars that we've bought used. Like our new cars, the ones that we had prior to the Fit, lasted over 12 years each. Our used cars have with no major mechanical issues. Our used cars have not had that. Like the Journey is lucky because it's been just babied by us and it's barely driven. Whereas our previous new cars, we were in Texas and driving the hell out of those cars and racking up the miles and just didn't have any issues.
My 2003 Eclipse just died because I'd given it to my brother and he ended up being in a wreck that totaled the car because at this point, it's a 16-year-old car. So, but it made it that long. It's crazy.
So it's not necessarily, I know the conventional wisdom is, always buy used, but I think we kind of prefer to buy new, even if it's paying a little bit of a premium to have the hassle-free time with that car, just based on our personal experience. So now let's talk about options for paying for your car, which is cash versus financing. And you can take your time and go through the things that we've listed here. But one of the things that we wanted to point out is a lot of people say, well, always pay cash for a car over financing. And we have chosen to finance, and largely it's for convenience. And frankly, because the additional cost of that convenience is just not that high, and you'll see that as we go into the numbers.
Yeah, and the other key difference, like the flexibility that you gain from financing, and I mean, of course, you have to look at all the numbers to make sure it shakes out exactly the way that you want, but even if you have a big pile of cash that you could use to pay for the car, well, then you have a car which is a less liquid asset than all of that cash, and so if something happened where you could have used some cash in the meantime, well, then you don't have it anymore. You just have this car that, like, if it were a real emergency, you would have to sell this car, and that's far more difficult than paying like a little bit of interest and still maintaining cash that could be invested or even conservatively and basically making about the same amount of interest.
Okay, so now let's look at how much the financing will cost us. So again, we told you it's a $25,000 loan at a 2.89% interest rate or 2.9% interest rate. So if we did not pay the car off earlier than the 60-month term, then we would end up paying $1,800 over 5 years or $32 a month, which is honestly just not, it's a very small, it's a couple lattes, it's like half a meal out. So in terms of using your discretionary money in a way that allows you to maximize your overall happiness, this might be a good way to spend that money. And like Joseph mentioned, if we had that $25,000 lump sum, and we invested that money instead and still took out this loan, because the loan is sub 3%, and we can expect that over that time horizon we can get around 5 to 8%, then we're actually making money by paying interest, because the money would be earning, the investments would be earning money.
And if you look at the numbers, if we pay it off faster, if it's 36 months, it would only be $1,000. And if we paid it off quickly in 7 months, which we're probably going to pay it off a little bit faster, then we would only be charged $224 for the rest of 2019.
And so this is a really important concept that we feel gets no play at all when it comes to personal finance. And it is that it's up to you how you want to spend your money. It's not wrong to pay interest. It's, are you getting some value out of the interest that you are paying? You can decide if the interest is worth it to you or not. And we have decided, based on our finances and all of our financial goals, that it makes sense to us. And so one of the things that I will say, we've talked about how we are working on building out our community, which I think we're going to call Wealth Builders Academy. And in that community, we would be able to have these deeper dive conversations into like, what are some of the criteria you'll want to look at as you're making these decisions, even beyond what we're talking about here in this video, because we'll be doing live Q&As. And so there'll be so many real world examples for us to have real dialogue with people about what's going on in their lives and some things that they should think about. So if you have not signed up for the wait list yet for Wealth Builders Academy, then you should go to onebighappylife.com/insider so that you'll be notified when we open the doors and you can be part of our core insider group.
Now let's talk a little bit about how financing the car impacts our finances. Okay, so our budget. Well, it's definitely going to increase our monthly baseline expenses because there is going to be that car payment that we have to make every month.
And so the downside is that the reason why we decided to do rapid debt payoff at the beginning of this year is because we have decided that I will be staying home next year. We're going to be having a baby, and that's the plan. So we want to shrink our minimum monthly budget as much as possible between now and then, which is also why we're pre-funding Alexis's college account, because we don't want to have to worry about having to pay money towards her college. We just want to knock it out now. So that's why our plan is to go ahead and also pay this car off this year, or get like as close to it as possible, so that we'll have the room that we want next year, even with the loss of my income.
Next, our retirement savings. And this is also something that you should look at with any major car purchase or change in your budget. And for us, there is no significant impact. Why? Because we are not diverting any of our savings from savings to paying this car or anything else. And so, not an issue there. Next thing is to look at your long-term 5-year plan, goals, future things. Is it going to cut into any of those? Fortunately for us, the answer is also no.
Or at least not really. It's not like it will stop us from being able to do those things. It just stops us from being able to do them right now. Because at the end of the day, everything that you spend money on means there's a whole host of other things that money is not available to spend on. So we want to redo our master bath. We can't redo our master bath because we bought a car. And that's something, or we might not be able to. We're going to have to see how the year shakes out. But that's something that we've decided, we've prioritized which things we want to focus on. And one of the other things that we did was we actually created a 10-year timeline where we outlined the major purchases, including family trips, that we expect to be making over the next 10 years. So we know Alexis will need her car now, but then we're done with cars. Alexis will need to get her college paid for. We're taking care of that this year. We're done with college for another, Reeves is 15 years. The house roof is done. Like, you can there are only so many massive financial outlays that you have in your life, and you can plan for those and decide when you want to tackle each of them. For us, Alexis's car was this year.
Yeah, and I will say that we could have done the car buying a different way. We could have replaced more cars cheaper with older models or something like that. And so the cars that we have now do have to last and longer, and we're not going to replace those a little bit because we did buy a brand new car right now.
Yeah, so we did chart that out. We probably will replace both cars still within the next 3 to 5 years. We will definitely replace both cars within the next 3 to 5 years, but we're okay with letting this car purchase be what we do right now. So we hope that you guys enjoyed this video. And again, you can download these slides at onebighappylife.com/new car and sign up for the wait list for Wealth Builders Academy at onebighappylife/insider.
Also, let us know in the comments if you've had some good car buying experiences or the kinds of things that you thought about when you were purchasing a car. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.